Good evening. Every 4 minutes, someone becomes homeless, according to the Charities shelter. And it's feared that the rising cost of living will force more people onto the streets this winter.
Well, Charities say it's a crisis like never before, with more people asking for help. An ITV News Meridian investigation has found that across the region, more than 9,000 people are homeless now.
So let's take a look at our interactive map. In November, 16 people were homeless in Buckinghamshire. In the Vale of White Horse area, including Wantage and Farringdon, 28 people are sleeping rough or housed in emergency accommodation. In the Hart district, including Odium and Fleet, the number of homeless last month was 70.
Well, having a safe place and a roof over your head is what many people take for granted, but for some families, the reality is very different.
In the first of our series of special reports breaking the stigma surrounding homelessness, Coshan has been speaking to people who found themselves with no place to call home.
Look up the word homeless in a dictionary and it'll tell you it's a person without a home and therefore typically living on the streets. But you can be homeless even with a roof over your head, and the stereotypes surrounding people experiencing homelessness remain. Describe the person that comes to mind when you hear the word homeless.
Somebody lying in a shop doorway with a sleeping bag, looking very sad. What I say is, but for the grace of God, there go I. That could be me.
Well, I used to think that, I used to feel really, really sorry for them, but now you don't know whether they're genuine. Yeah.
Someone unemployed with no relatives.
Most of the people that are on the streets are either drunk or not quite sane.
I think a lot of the people look a bit scary, a bit unapproachable, and I don't want to sound awful, but it's just the dangers involved. I don't know them.
Keith, I have to ask about that wonderful jacket you're wearing. It's catching a lot of eyes today.
It's an icebreaker. It's a way to start a conversation with somebody.
Keith doesn't fit that description. He lost his job as a mechanic during the pandemic. He lost his home as a result and slept in his car for a while before he ended up sleeping rough. He's in temporary accommodation now, but this little alcove next to a shop is one of the places he resided in during his 2 months on the streets.
Yeah, this is my old room with a view where I used to stay, and on the high street when I first became homeless. It's got 3 walls there, so there's a bit of protection from the elements. I thought that'd be the safest place to be, would be in the high street. CCTV, people around. Be better off than being hidden away in some bush where nobody even knows you're there.
But the reality was very different.
Yeah, the reality turns out that spins on its head. You're safer off out the city than you are in the city. This is the spot where I'm sleeping one night. I got woken up by somebody urinating on me, just showing up in front of his missus.
That's horrific.
That is. And cans of Coke bounced off my head when I've been asleep just because I'm a threat to somebody who wants to walk past me. Big misconception with homeless people. You instantly assume that you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, you've got big issues. The only problem I had, I lost my job due to COVID.
Those repulsive encounters were part and parcel of life on the streets, according to Keith, coupled with the interactions, or more, the lack of, from passers-by, made him feel completely worthless. We watched on from afar as he proved it to us, for 10 minutes, sitting where he used to. And not a single person interacted with him. A small indication of how isolating life can become for people experiencing homelessness.
10 minutes, not a single hello.
Oh no.
If you're all right. And I guess that's just a small scale of...
Yeah, and so the weekend you get much more people. The high street is absolutely rammed. But yeah, and that's where some all day can go like that some days.
That must be really demoralising.
It is. It is, especially when you see a lot of people walking past and that when you're hungry and stuff and they've got food and everything with them, and sometimes you think, just give us a boy that, mate.
The assumption that Keith makes is that some people are so consumed in their own lives to notice anything below their eye level. He says he was made to feel that anyone on the floor doesn't matter. He even wore bright clothes to try and stand out because that interaction meant the world. It raises some important questions though. Is it the responsibility of strangers walking by to help? And do those people experiencing homelessness have friends and family they can turn to for support?
Tanya did just that. She was unable to work because of her mental health and found herself in rent arrears. Even once she managed to start working again, the debt became too much and she was eventually evicted. Now homeless, she turned to her family for help.
My sister had children there and just putting too much on the family. Although I was working and was paying, you know, towards food and the electrics and stuff, I still felt like a burden. It's an extra person that they had to have under their roof and cook for and clean after. I mean, I did as much as I could, but it really, really did knock my mental health. It made me feel like I was useless and worthless and that people are better off without me. Never thought I'd ever become homeless, but it can happen to anybody at any time.
Putting a strain on their relationship, Tanya started sofa surfing before eventually finding Two Saints, a prominent homeless charity in the south, to help get her back on her feet. Bosses at Crisis, the UK's national charity for homeless people, say even in areas of the Thames Valley considered affluent, homelessness is a problem.
I would think our figures have doubled. I think we've also seen an increase in people who are contacting us for support who are in work and who maybe have never been homeless before, which I think is a real indication of how the cost of living is affecting the country and could affect the kind of number of people who become homeless. As an organisation, we are predicting that 300,000 households could become homeless next year as a result of the cost of living.
There are organisations, charities, shelters that people experiencing homelessness can go to for help. But we've learnt that many of those services are close to capacity. And while the cost of living crisis is putting a strain on more households this winter, more people are edging anxiously closer to having no place to call home. Coshan, ITV News.